Hello and welcome to the preview show, and we are joined with two special guests, former Sunderland player Kieron Brady and matchday mouth, I suppose, Frankie Francis now.
I suppose so.
Yeah, you're the PA guy now.
Yeah.
Doing a good job.
Well, it's only been 2 games. It's a long way to
Solid
go.
Start,
it's a long way to go.
Solid start. We've got loads to dissect today. 2 wins, obviously, this week. So we had Portsmouth on Saturday and Rochdale as well. 2 big wins, 2-2-1s. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the AFC Wimbledon game this weekend. So we've got Burnley as well next week in the League Cup, which will be an interesting test for Jack Ross's boys. And then Peterborough next weekend, because there'll be no preview show next week. So we'll do a little bit on that. But we'll start with Portsmouth. Coming from a goal down to get a win, pretty impressive against a promotion rival.
It was. I certainly thought that the performance increased as the game went on, but having said that, I would still be concerned about how tentative the opening stages were, and Portsmouth were able to capitalise on that. But I think the introduction of Aidan and Chris Maguire from the start certainly helped, and the passage of play perhaps from the 30-minute period onwards was certainly in the context of the league the most impressive that I've seen so far.
We'll take a look at the highlights. Obviously the first goal that Portsmouth scored was a bit of a stinker, to be honest, from the Sunderland perspective. We sort of should have cleared it maybe a bit earlier.
Yeah, I mean, I think the warning signs were there, but to get cut open in that particular manner, and okay, they managed to retrieve the ball before eventually it rebounded favourably and it was finished very well. But at times as a defence, you don't mind if you're sliced apart because the opposition is particularly adept at it. But that was far too easy. To go from Portsmouth's back four all the way through in such a short period of time was something, of course, that they'll have to look at. But I suppose in many ways, although it might not be primarily Jordan Willis's responsibility, he might have felt as a defender that he more than made up for it, because that was an outstanding header, full of desire, and something you hope will be replicated in the weeks and months to come.
Frankie, Aidan getting an assist there, Chris Maguire getting a goal, that was great for Sunderland fans to see.
Yeah, I think those two play well. I think they enjoy playing together. Chris Maguire, if we can keep Chris Maguire and Aidan McGeady fit for the season, and they can play, as they've shown in moments this season so far, if they do a little bit of that each game, I think I'd be confident that we would progress to the next league.
And Kieron Brady's getting a fine here, I suppose, as well.
It's the WhatsApp message.
How much is that normally, a phone going off in the middle of a press conference?
Well, that would be very difficult for me to answer, because mobile phones were not a reality at the time of my brief foray into professional football, but I understand it can be quite exorbitant for a lot of players.
So Portsmouth, promotion rival as well, so I think does that add extra sort of...
Well, there's been this weird rivalry we've had with them for the last 18 months or something like that, isn't it? Where it's kind of intensified. It didn't actually feel that much like the almost derby which we were expecting the weekend gone. And when we went 1-0 down, I was a little bit fearful. I thought, well, they beat us at Wembley. Now they look like they were going to beat us here. But I was really impressed with the character of the side and the way we ultimately controlled the game, and kind of dominated them essentially. In large periods, made us think like we are the superior team, and they are going to be there and thereabouts. There's no doubt about it. Certain players, but those certain players for Portsmouth haven't really shined particularly against us, although they shine throughout the season. We always seem to keep them quiet, so I took a lot of, I thought that was really good from the Sunderland side.
And towards the end of the game, we did a good job of defending that lead, and we've seen Sunderland crumble, seen them concede late goals last season, but to see them hold on to that 1-goal lead and get the 3 points, I thought was impressive.
Well, it was in many ways reminiscent of what we witnessed at Fratton Park in the second leg of the playoff, where although the game of course was 0-0 at that particular stage, Sunderland were in control, and if they could see it out, then they would be the team to progress to the final. And I felt that performance at Fratton Park last year in the playoffs was Sunderland's most mature performance. They completely nullified any attacking intent from Portsmouth. To the point that, as you both alluded to, any rivalry or any animosity which may have emerged at the end of such a high-profile fixture had been completely alleviated because Sunderland took the sting right out of them. I don't know if Portsmouth will be a promotion rival this particular season, and I say that only because the start to the season hasn't been great, but I've got no doubt that other clubs, I would say Coventry, I would say Blackpool, I still think Burton Albion could have a part to play. So even if Portsmouth were to not be one of the promotion contenders, there's no doubt they'll be replaced by other sides.
Looking at the game last night, got the highlights here. That was again a gritty win, it's fair to say, 2-1. It was hard conditions, bad weather, windy, rainy, not a typical August night, and the team came through with it.
Yeah, but it was hard conditions and rainy and windy for Rochdale.
True.
You know, and on all accounts, they actually played football quite well to very well. So it's an excellent result and an excellent outcome when you think that the performance or the performances so far this season within the league have been substandard. There's no getting away from it. And you can, of course, take heart from the fact that it's 8 points from 12 without ever hitting the heights. But of course, Jack Ross, the coaching staff and the players will want to ensure that they can enhance the performances, because in the main, over any significant period of time, if performances are good, generally the results will follow.
And Aidan McGeady got on the score sheet as well. Good finish, good work from Lugo Knight to set him up. Frankie, are you getting more impressed with McGeady? Is he looking like the player we had towards the end of last season?
Well, he's scored and got an assist last night, and at times, you know what he's like. He's probably the most skillful. Well, he's the most skillful player in the league. I think he torments fullbacks, doesn't he? And he was doing it at will last night. Again, he's very important for Sunderland, and it can't be. I think he has to be in the side week in, week out. And if he performs and gets, has a small say in the game, he's so valuable for Sunderland. I thought last night there was good performances all over the pitch, though. People are saying where's this? When we're going to see the real style of play, if you like. But I thought there's lots of positives to take from the game, all from the back all the way through. I think Ozturk and Willis, I think another game under their belt as a partnership at the back is very important, and that can only improve through time. I thought Will Grigg, when he came on, looked really sharp and really hungry.
Involved in the goal as well.
Involved in the goal as well. So there was a lot of positives to take from last night, and I've seen a lot of people speaking on social media about styles of play and formations over the last couple of weeks. We're only a couple of weeks into the season, and I think the manager even said himself too much is read into formations. And
True.
I was going to ask you, Kieron. I mean, you set out with a formation. You set out on the pitch, but how relevant is it once you?
Well, first of all, you can set out from the very outset with two formations.
Yeah.
And you're right in what you're saying, or you're certainly right in what Jack Ross has indicated. Formations within the footballing fraternity are somewhat laughed at in terms of how much importance is placed upon them by media and consequently supporters or followers of the game. If you're going to play 3 at the back, for example, generally it's 5 at the back, but it's 3 at the back as you're moving forward. So much depends on when you have possession, so much depends on the opposition. And I find the obsession with formations laughable. But what good managers can do is, if you have a group of players that are inferior to any opposition that you're going to come up against, you can use formations, tactics, strategy, etc. to try and compensate for the fact that your group of players are technically inferior. But I know a lot has been mentioned at times about Jack Ross, for example, not knowing his best 11. He's certainly not going to know his best 11 if he doesn't know or have confidence in what might be a good formation to begin with. And I sometimes laugh at managers who feel that they have to conform to football fashion and try to play 4 at the back with 2 holding midfielders, then 3, then 1. You know, for some managers, especially if they're not going to have the luxury of being able to spend, they're going to have to try to manage with what they have. And if what they have is best represented by a traditional 4-4-2, then that's what you go with. And the thing about Sunderland within League One is that in a lot of football matches, one team is active and one team is reactive. And in League One, Sunderland should almost always be active. Almost every single team should be reactive to how Sunderland are going to play and operate and what strengths that they have. That's not to say you're dismissive of whatever strengths your opponents have, but ultimately, if there's going to be one team that is taking the initiative and one team that's trying to cope with it and then, of course, try to capitalise in any occasions themselves, then, you know, Sunderland should always be the team, for me, that is taking the initiative. You think of some of the grounds that Sunderland will visit over the course of the season, and there must be several that the away support will outnumber the home support. Yep. Now, okay, it's not the Stadium of Light, it's not a home game in the proper sense of the word, but don't ever try and convince me that it's an away fixture, because if you take last night, for example, nobody could convince me that Sunderland were walking into some form of cauldron. So I think all of these things are the responsibility of Jack Ross to try and get across to the players that don't think that this is an away fixture in the traditional sense. You know, we've got most of the fans, on maybe not last night, but you know what I mean, throughout the course of the season. But just formations for me is how much people go on about them, I find completely bewildering. I really do.
I want to ask who the most impressive player has been in the last 2 games. Who would you pick out and say they've done particularly well? I look at maybe Jordan Willis, possibly my shout in there. Charlie White was impressive last night, and he did really well when he came on off the bench. But is there anybody else you looked at and went?
For me, and it's almost beyond doubt. Certainly from what I seen on Saturday, and certainly from what I've seen regarding last night, and I appreciate it, you know, you can only go so much, but John McLaughlin has been critical. You know, the save that he made low, that went for a corner last night, his save from Leadbitter's unfortunate header on Saturday. I mean, we do tend at times when we talk about the players that potentially are man of the match, subconsciously at least, some people tend to disregard goalkeepers. And he's a player as much as anyone else. And I wouldn't be saying this if the saves that he was making were basics. But certainly the save low down last night is every bit, I mean, that's stopping a certain goal through an exceptional piece of play. You know, so if you're saying that Aiden is instrumental in getting us the win, I would say that John McLaughlin is instrumental in ensuring that Rochdale only scored 1 goal, which of course is instrumental in ensuring 3 points. So Aiden's always going to get the headlines. It's the nature of football. But John McLaughlin, for me, not just this season, but over the course of last season, has been, you know, for a free transfer, he's been excellent. And I'm not saying that in light of the goalkeeping problems that were so evident throughout the championship season. Just in isolation, within his own right, you know, he was very good last season, and from what I've seen this season, he's just continuing it.
Frankie, anyone you'd like to pick out? I
don't think I can pick a solo performer throughout the last couple of games. I thought Max Parrow was very important in the Portsmouth game. I thought last night Jordan Willis, you know, but I think Ali Mozturk as well. You know, his you know, coming back into the side has made a big impact as well. I think there's been, you know, good performances in the last couple of games by a few players throughout the side, and I'm just happy to see that, you know, we got the 3 points last night. That was the most important thing. Let's just go get it. You know, the old adage, you go away from home at points, a good point. But you know, maybe if we had that fixture at the end of last season, that would have been another famous 1-1, if you like, you know. But we got the 3 points. It's another win in a row. It's 3 in a row, isn't it? In all competitions. Another chance on Saturday to get another 3 points. And wins breed wins, don't they? And confidence. We saw that with the run we had last season. So I'm quietly confident that there's enough performances bubbling under the surface there. Maybe a few going under the radar. It's all going to come to fruition, and it's all going to click, And I think the team are slowly but surely, they are climbing the table as well, aren't they?
What do you think we can expect from Wimbledon? Last year they were good both times. Probably unlucky not to have picked up a point in both games. To be fair, it's a bit of Aidan McGeady brilliance won it here. I think it was Lee Catmull who got the 2 goals down there. Do you think we can expect another solid defensive performance from there to be up to Sunderland to try and put their emphasis on the game and try and be on the front foot, and they're just going to sit and be happy with a 0-0 draw?
Well, the game's taking place at the Stadium of Light. It's the League One favourites against the team that is presently in the 4 relegation positions. There's absolutely no doubt that Sunderland should be taking the initiative, hoping to start on the front foot. I believe that's as applicable to the game on Saturday, and it would be to almost any game that Sunderland are playing at home this season. So Frankie's right in what he's saying, and Connor, you were saying this before we went on air, that so many of the sides in League One can match Sunderland in many ways up until the final third. But when you have that quality that Aidan McGeady has, or Chris Maguire on occasion has, and I think Mark McNulty will add to in terms of within the penalty box, then so many of the other sides don't have one of those players, let alone 3. And then of course, this isn't to disregard the contribution of Charlie Wyke and the fact that he can bring an extra dimension. So Sunderland should be taking the initiative in games like AFC Wimbledon at home, and I would expect an improved performance, but I would still expect a similar outcome to what's emerged in the last 3 games.
And look at the next 5 games: Wimbledon at home, Peterborough away, Burton at home, Accrington Stanley away, and then Rotherham at home. So they're, it's going to see where we are after that. It'll probably tell if we're going to be top 2 or sort of top 6. Gives us a chance to maybe break away from the rest of the teams, or maybe slot kind of where we were last year, which was just on the periphery of the top 2. But how many points do you think we should be looking for from those 5 games?
Well, I believed at the outset of the season that from the first 10 games, Sunderland should be aiming for 23 or more. I believed that 18 or less would be unacceptable. Now, as things stand, they have of course dropped 4, which would still mean that 26 is achievable. From those 5 games, I would like to think that you would be looking at...
I think this weekend, win Peterborough away, that's the hard one, isn't it? That's the one you look at and go...
Yeah, but the thing about the games, if somebody says to me now, you can lose at Accrington Stanley but win the other 4, I would take it. If somebody says you can lose at Peterborough but win the other 4, I probably wouldn't. I wouldn't want to lose to any of the competitors that you may have towards the end of the season. And I don't believe that Accrington Stanley will, but Peterborough United may well be. So 11 points from 15 wouldn't be disastrous. That's like 3 wins and 2 draws. And I say that only because I don't think there's many other sides in the division that look at this moment as if they're going to run away with things. I think it's going to be competitive. I certainly don't think Sunderland are going to run away with it. But you obviously have to try and make sure that you don't lose to your immediate competitors. And if people see Peterborough United as one, then of course that would follow. Rotherham, they may well be. You always think that a relegated club, and Rotherham and Peterborough are probably the 2 perfect examples of the fluctuating sides between the Championship and League One. So, but 11 from 15 wouldn't be too bad.
Frankie, where are you on that? 11?
Yeah.
Does that sound good to you?
Yeah, I mean, I always like to see us win our home games, and then a point away from home is always, I think, always acceptable. Unless it's like devastating, environment with a team at the real bottom of the league. But it's going to be the same old problem we had last season. Teams like AFC Wimbledon are going to come up here and just try and get a point out of it. It's a big day out for them again. We have to go back to what Kieron was saying. We need to be, what did you call it, the reactors, or we need to be the one.
Active.
Proactive. Yeah, we need to be the team in all those fixtures as well. I'm not as worried about Peterborough. I know they were there or thereabouts, but they often kind of tail off, don't they? And I don't think they've had the best of starts. No. And we've got to look at the league as well, because some of our rivals are losing a couple of points last night. Portsmouth, following on from the defeat here, ended up drawn to 9 men, didn't they, in the end? So we keeping an eye on the league. I'm always happy with winning at home and then getting a few points away.
See, I think that when Sunderland are playing at the Stadium of Light in League One, what really should be happening within the environment of the opposition in the week leading up to it is that they actually start preparing for the game on a Wednesday, rather than just going through the motions of set pieces and the like that they would for a lot of other opposition on a Friday. Because if you're doing that, some people would argue that an initial battle has already been won. Because I don't believe that Jack Ross necessarily has to start going through every single aspect of AFC Wimbledon's strengths and weaknesses at this moment. There's always the risk that you're going to put some fear into the players if you overdo it. But nevertheless, there's a lot of footballers that will come to the Stadium of Light this season, just like last season, who may never ever get the opportunity to play in front of 30,000 plus people in a league match throughout their career. Now, I personally felt that most footballers and most clubs last year embraced it rather than endured it. There was one or two exceptions: Plymouth, Argyle, Scunthorpe, Rochdale to a degree, but most other players I felt came and thought, well, I believe I can play in an environment like this, and of course that consequently caused Sunderland some problems, and in the end I think they only won 12 from 23 home fixtures. So I know it's cliched to talk about fortresses and the like, but even if it's not a fortress, even if we're talking about crowds that may on occasion be under 30,000 or 25,000, it should still suffice to make those players think, right, we're the ones that have to cope with Sunderland, or certainly cope with them in the opening stages. Then if the game settles down, we can then perhaps try and build on it.
Well, that's something what we haven't seen though, we haven't really came out the blocks.
No.
Really at home this season in a couple of fixtures. I'd really like to see us, go for the jugular straight from the off.
Because it is the type of thing that will get the fans quite raucous. Yeah. And the relationship between fans and professional footballers is really, really important. I don't believe that clubs are anywhere near innovative or imaginative enough in terms of the relationships that they have with their supporters. I believe that there should be much greater interaction in a personal, face-to-face manner between players and the supporters about how to get motivated and what individual things will motivate one player to the next. But the one thing that is very evident and obvious within football, and it's not in any way unique to the Stadium of Light, is that if football clubs do start on the front foot, you do tend to get a positive reaction from the support, which in turn then can lead to greater initiative and at times risks being taken and confidence in the players. But it's been some time since that was evident. I think if anything, the game against Oxford for me had parallels with some of the performances and the nerve that we'd witnessed in the championship season. Going a goal down, okay, they managed to come back, and it's too easy to say, well, if a team comes back and gains something from a game, that it's influenced by character. No, it's not always like that. Lyndon Gooch done very well to get a penalty, and he converted it exceptionally well. But you know, that try and take advantage that you generally have a home crowd that numbers what 6 or 7 teams playing alongside you in League One on any Saturday cannot get combined. You know, and make the opposition nervy. And a lot of that can be done in the opening period. You don't want a player to be walking on the pitch, as many would, feeling intimidated and daunted. I recall playing at Elland Road and being scared. I don't know why, but just the noise. But if you then go out and everything sort of settles down, you think, oh, this isn't bad. You know, I can, you know, I'm okay now. And
was that ever used as a thing by a manager you've played under? Said, you know, get the 12th man, if you like, on side from the off. Did anyone, a captain in a side you played with, ever do that?
We had a coach for a period under Malcolm Crosby called Bobby Ferguson. And Bobby Ferguson had been Bobby Robson's assistant at Ipswich Town. And Bobby Ferguson told us one day that when he was at Ipswich Town, he and Bobby Robson would tell the players whenever they came to the North East, not just to Sunderland, to Newcastle or Sunderland, if you keep the ball, if you score, all well and good, but if you can't score, just keep the ball, try and have the majority of possession for the first 20 minutes to half hour. If you're knocking the ball about comfortably, a large section of their supporters will start to get frustrated, and it will start to filter into the minds of at least some of the players, maybe not all of the players. And I've got no doubt that many managers and coaches still employ that attitude when they come to the North East. And the notion of the 12th man, I believe that the Sunderland fans are more of a 12th man than you would get at many other clubs. But if you're going to make allowances for the support, broadly speaking, to be regarded as the 12th man, it should mean, logically, that they can be subject to the same criticisms as directed at the 11 other men.
Doesn't work that way sometimes.
No, it doesn't. But the thing is, see, there's a difference. There's a difference.
It's a bit of a touchy ground.
Well, there's a huge distinction to be made by between exceptionally passionate and loyal fans, which Sunderland's are undoubtedly, but being good fans and consistently so.
Yeah.
And if I'm a young player, and I was very fortunate that the relationship and the rapport I had with the support was exceptional, and I'll always appreciate it, but it's not always the case. And if you are a player who is being singled out, not so much at half time, not so much when a game is concluded, but during a game, that can make you nervy, you know. And if you're playing in a certain position and it means that more and more passes become misplaced, or even you run somewhere that you wouldn't normally, you know, it can be catastrophic in footballing terms. So these are all the things that I believe, if you are going to say, look, you are the 12th man, because you don't, maybe there's no scientific way of proving it, but at times in a game, your reaction or the song that you sing for a player in an individual sense will give him an extra 10%. And the reason I know it's the truth is because I was a beneficiary of it. The fans were much more important to me than Dennis Smith, the manager. You know, he had the fear of God in me, but then when you run out and there's 30,000 people chanting Kieron and you're only 18 years old, I mean, you kind of think, wow, this is, you know, so there's a huge role for the fans to play, but sadly, football, generally speaking, has never ever explored that in any definitive manner, and that would be as applicable to Sunderland as it would be anyone else. Not, you know, when songs that fans have sang for years and years and years and years reverberate around stadia, I know it gives supporters a sense of well-being, that they're adhering to historic cultures and customs. But with the globalisation of the game, Alan Ozturk, for example, and I'm just using him as an example, is maybe not going to be particularly motivated by the Sunderland supporters' version of the Bladen races.
Yeah.
you know, if he probably wouldn't be impolite enough to say publicly, you know, I don't even know what the hell they're singing about. But as much as football's a team game, trust me when I say it's an individual's career. And if you ask me, would you rather they were singing for the team or chanting your name? It's the latter all the time. But see, when I was a footballer, if I'd been asked that, I would have come out with this cliched nonsense. Well, it's not really about me, it's about the team. Sorry, but that is, I mean, it really is nonsensical, because the people that are here today, you know, if you start messing up your camera work, you know, when you go home tonight and the people that you live with say to you, how was your day at work? How did you perform? And you were to respond by saying, well, I've been absolutely useless the last 3 days, but the club's quarterly profits are up significantly. You know, people are going to say, get your act together, because it's your job that's on the line. And footballers try to present this facade of humility. And honest to God, I mean, I cringe now when I think back, you know, when I was getting compared with some wonderful footballers, and I used to, just to be mentioned in the same sentence as him, is, you know, and I think, oh, geez. You know, why didn't I just say, well, forget him. I want to be me. You know, yeah. It's the only person I can be. But anyway, did I deviate there from what we were discussing?
I think that's been on your chest like, for a while there.
Yeah, I know, it sounded like, is this a soapbox or a stool?
We'll finish off. We've got Burnley as well next week. Important or not, do you think?
I think it's you know, we're playing Premier League opposition for the first time in a couple of...
Everton, when we're in the Championship.
Right.
The last time we played them.
But it's been a couple of seasons now then. You know, I'd imagine they're going to put a weakened side out. We've got a good squad, where even in rotation we put out a good squad. I think we'll give it a go. I can't really see us getting anything. If we did, brilliant. You know, I think it goes towards this ongoing confidence snowball effect kind of thing. Great. If we go out, I'm not at all bothered.
See, I think there's an element of kidology in it, that if Sunderland were to go to Turf Moor and win, irrespective of the starting 11 that Burnley fielded, Jack Ross should really be saying to the players, look, you've went to a Premier League side and won. You know, even if it did happen to be half of Burnley's under 23s and some of the players that can't play regularly for the first team. But I would agree with Frankie, it's certainly not a priority, but there's something to be gained from it if you can go and perform well. Even if the result isn't favourable, you know, the performance can be looked at and hopefully things taken from it that can be helpful to what I believe is the primary, some would argue the only consideration, and that is promotion.
Okay, thanks guys for coming in. Thanks Frankie, we'll see you at the match.
Yes, will you hear me?
Yeah, that's cool.
See him, I'm hidden in a little bunker somewhere.
I was going to say, I always look for you during the games.
Can't find me. I'm hiding.
Thank you, always a pleasure. We'll send you that rant. It was about 10 minutes, I think you did that.
Oh, jeez, I know, I feel like Castro in the United Nations
got the
in the early 60s. Yeah. Viva the revolution.
There's no preview show next week, so we've got a week off. Nice week off for us. Thanks for watching.